Let's get one thing straight. I am not the villain in this story. If you're here for a tearful confession, a dramatic mea culpa about how I single-handedly destroyed my marriage, you're in the wrong place. My name is Eliza, I'm 32, and the story you think you know is not the one that actually happened. Between us, I was just trying to save myself from drowning. A year ago, my husband Caleb and I decided to open our marriage, and when I say we decided, I mean I planted the seed, nurtured it, and gently guided it into bloom while he watched, bewildered but intrigued. 7 years, 2 beautiful children, Leo and Nora, and a mortgage that felt heavier than the house itself. Our life was a perfectly curated picture of suburban success, and I was dying inside it. The silence at the dinner table was the worst, broken only by the scrape of forks and the same tired stories about his quarterly reports. I'd look at Caleb, the man I once couldn't keep my hands off, and feel nothing but a vast, empty plain of familiarity. The romance hadn't just died, it had been buried, and we were both dancing on its grave without realizing it. The idea didn't strike like lightning. It was more like a slow creeping fog. It started with jokes. "Who's on your hall pass list?" I'd ask while we watched a movie, nudging him playfully. I'd mention a friend from college who was in a polyamorous relationship, framing it as this fascinating, progressive experiment. I was testing the waters, dipping a toe in to check the temperature. Caleb would laugh it off, but I saw the flicker of curiosity in his eyes. What man wouldn't be intrigued by the promise of guilt-free variety? The conversation, the real one, happened on a Tuesday night. The air was thick with the unspoken things between us. I orchestrated it perfectly. I waited until the kids were asleep, poured 2 glasses of wine, and sat beside him on the sofa, my expression a careful mask of thoughtful concern. "I feel like we're stuck, Caleb," I began, my voice soft. "Like we're just roommates who co-parent. I miss the spark. I miss us." He nodded slowly, his gaze fixed on the wine swirling in his glass. "I know, things have been routine." Accent. "What if," I said, leaning in, letting the words hang in the air, "we gave each other a gift, the gift of freedom, a chance to find that spark outside of this house, so we can bring that energy back into it, to strengthen what we have." Between us, I wasn't thinking about strengthening our marriage. I was thinking about Evan, the sinfully handsome instructor from my spin class whose smile made my stomach do flips. I wanted permission to act on that raw, thrilling fantasy without detonating the stable, comfortable life I had built, but I couldn't say that part out loud. Caleb was hesitant, of course. He was a man of logic and order, but the idea, the sheer possibility of it, was a powerful lure. We spent the next hour drafting rules, a ridiculous peace treaty for a war I had just declared. He sat at the kitchen table with a legal pad, looking so serious it was almost comical. "No falling in love. Always use protection. No exceptions. Friday date night is still sacred. For us, full disclosure about who we're seeing." I nodded along to every point, a placid smile on my face. Rules, I thought, are for people who can't handle freedom. I just needed him to feel secure while I did what I wanted. That very night, with him watching from the doorway of our bedroom, I downloaded the apps. He flinched slightly when the bright icons appeared on my screen. Then, reluctantly, like a man marching to his own execution, he did the same. His profile was a disaster. Grainy photos from a family vacation 5 years ago. A bio that practically screamed, "I'm being forced to do this. Ethically non-monogamous husband and father." It was pathetic. I even helped him fix it. Choosing a better photo, rewriting his bio to sound less like a hostage statement, all the while thinking, there's no way he's getting any matches anyway. It was the perfect plan. He'd try for a few weeks, get discouraged by the brutal world of online dating, and I would get my fill of excitement and novelty. I'd come home, flushed and alive, to my devoted husband and our perfect family. It was a win-win. For me, and for the first month, it worked exactly as I'd imagined. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from charming, witty, attractive men. I went on dates. I had intoxicating, anonymous encounters that left me feeling desired and powerful. I would come home late, give Caleb the sanitized, brief version of my night, and he would nod with a forced, supportive smile. He'd be sitting on the couch, endlessly swiping with a confused look on his face. I almost felt bad for him. Almost, I was in complete control. I had my family, my security, and my freedom. I had engineered the perfect life. I had no idea that the variable I'd so confidently dismissed was about to change the entire equation. Then came Sloan. I still remember the night Caleb mentioned her. It was a mundane moment, the kind you don't realize is a turning point until you look back on it with the clarity of hindsight. We were loading the dishwasher, a silent, practiced choreography of domesticity. "I'm meeting someone for coffee tomorrow," he said, not looking at me. His voice was casual, too casual. "Oh?" I replied, feigning cheerful interest. "That's great, honey. About time." Inside, a different voice sneered. "Some desperate girl is actually willing to date my husband. She must be scraping the bottom of the barrel. Her name is Sloan," he added. "She's a law student. Even better, I thought. Probably just wants a sugar daddy to pay off her student loans." I didn't think about it again until he came home the next evening. The change in him was immediate and visceral. For years, Caleb had come home from work looking drained, his shoulders slumped from the weight of his day. But that night, he walked in glowing. That's the only word for it. He was lit up like a damn Christmas tree in July, an energy buzzing around him that I hadn't seen since our own early days. "So?" I asked, leaning against the kitchen counter, trying to sound nonchalant. His face broke into a wide, genuine smile. "It was great. She's incredible, Eliza. So smart. We talked for 3 hours and it felt like 10 minutes. She's working on this fascinating case for her Innocence Project clinic, and the way she talks about justice." He kept going, his words tumbling out in an excited rush. I kept my smile plastered on my face, nodding and making affirmative sounds, while my internal monologue was a cascade of eye rolls. "Calm down. It was just coffee." But a small, cold knot was forming in my stomach. It wasn't jealousy. Not yet. It was annoyance. This wasn't part of the script. Of course, my first move was to look her up online. I told myself it was just curiosity, a wife's due diligence, but it quickly became an obsession. Her social media was exactly what you'd expect from a 6-year-old law student. Artsy photos of lattes, towering stacks of textbooks with highlighted passages, inspirational quotes about changing the world. Basic, utterly predictably basic. But I couldn't stop looking. I scrolled through years of her life, comparing. She had this effortless, natural beauty that made me want to scream. No makeup, hair in a messy bun, wearing a simple t-shirt, and she still looked radiant. You try looking effortless after pushing out 2 kids and surviving on 4 hours of sleep, sweetie. I rationalized it away. He was 35, a father of 2 with a demanding job and a burgeoning dad bod. He hadn't seen the inside of a gym in years. She was 26, probably perky in all the right places, with her whole life ahead of her. This was a novelty for her. A phase. She'd get bored of playing house with a man who had to be home by 9 to relieve the babysitter. A couple of weeks, I figured, and she'd be gone. But a couple of weeks passed, and she wasn't gone. In fact, she was more present than ever. Caleb started scheduling his week around her. "I have to work late on Tuesday," he'd say, and I'd later find out work was dinner with Sloan. He started going to the gym. He bought new clothes. He was engaged, energized, and alive in a way that had absolutely nothing to do with me. When I'd ask about their dates, his eyes would light up as he described some intellectual debate they'd had or a foreign film she'd introduced him to. Meanwhile, he never asked for details about my dates unless I offered them. And when I did, sharing explicit details just to get a reaction, to provoke some flicker of jealousy, he'd just nod and say, "I'm glad you're enjoying yourself." What kind of response is that? Where was the possessiveness, the flicker of fear? Where was the man who was supposed to be pining for me, grateful for any scrap of attention I threw his way? By the 3rd month of our open marriage, something felt fundamentally wrong. This wasn't my fun little experiment anymore. This was a parallel life being built right under my roof, and I wasn't the architect. Caleb was supposed to be the stable, predictable anchor while I explored the wild seas. He wasn't supposed to build his own damn ship and set sail without me. But I wasn't worried. Not really. I had home field advantage. I was his wife, the mother of his children. This Sloan girl was just a phase, a walking, talking midlife crisis in yoga pants. Looking back now, that was the moment the ground began to shift beneath my feet. but I was too busy enjoying my own game to notice the earthquake that was coming. The real shift happened around month 4. It was subtle at first, a collection of small changes that, on their own, meant nothing. But together, they spelled out a terrifying new reality. It started with the silence. Caleb stopped asking about my dates entirely. At first, I was relieved. I was tired of editing my stories for his consumption. But then I realized a more profound silence had taken its place. He wasn't telling me about Sloan anymore either. He'd come home late, a small, private smile playing on his lips, and that smile had nothing to do with me. It drove me insane. One night, after he'd been texting nonstop through dinner, his thumbs flying across the screen, I couldn't take it anymore. I asked with dripping condescension, "So, what's her name?" As if I hadn't just spent an hour scrolling through her stupid Instagram feed. He looked up, his expression guarded, trying not to seem too excited. "Sloane's great, actually. She just won the mock trial competition at her law school." "Fascinating," I said, my voice flat. I wanted to scream. Who gives a damn about her fake courtroom trophy? Instead, I forced a smile. "That's nice. This basic little princess has him wrapped around her finger already. Please." The hypocrisy was astounding. He used to complain if I was on my phone too much. Now, he'd stay up until 2 a.m. talking to her, his voice a low, happy murmur from the living room. The very behaviors he once condemned in me, he now embraced with gusto. The real wake-up call came from his wallet. I was looking for the insurance card to fill out a school form for Leo, and a cascade of receipts fell out. Not just for coffee or dinner. There was a receipt from a high-end jewelry store for a delicate gold bracelet. Tickets to a concert for a band I knew he hated but that she had posted about. A hotel booking for a weekend getaway to a quaint little town upstate. A cold fury washed over me. When was the last time he'd bought me anything that wasn't from a grocery store flower aisle on our anniversary? Which, I realized with a jolt, was coming up. When I confronted him, he didn't even have the decency to look guilty. He just looked tired. I thought the whole point was we weren't keeping tabs on what we spend on other people, Eliza. "There's a difference between buying someone a drink and buying them a gold bracelet, Caleb," I snapped. He looked at me then, a long, searching look that made me uncomfortable. "When's the last time you planned something special for us?" he asked quietly. The audacity. The sheer, unmitigated gall. "I take care of your children. I run your house. And I'm supposed to plan romantic dates, too?" The words were out before I could stop them. He didn't get angry. He got something worse. Disappointed. He just shook his head and walked away, leaving me standing there, fuming. For the first time, I felt a genuine tremor of fear. I was losing control of the situation. This wasn't how open marriages were supposed to work. You were supposed to have your fun on the side, a little dessert to complement the main course. You weren't supposed to discover you prefer dessert for every meal and push the main course off the table. After that night, my own hookups felt hollow. I'd be in bed with some handsome generic guy from an app, and my mind would wander. What are Caleb and Sloan doing right now? Is he laughing at her jokes the way he used to laugh at mine? Is she telling him he's brilliant? I started to hate it. I hated the anonymous bodies and the meaningless conversations. All I could think about was the one conversation he was having that actually mattered, and it wasn't with me. My desperation escalated. I started manufacturing emergencies. I'd check his location on my phone, see that he was at her apartment, and text him. "Leo has a fever. When are you coming home?" He didn't have a fever. "The sink is leaking everywhere." It wasn't. "Your mom called and sounded upset." She hadn't. He'd call back, his voice tight with concern, and when he realized it was a false alarm, the disappointment in his voice was like a physical blow. He wasn't disappointed in me for lying. He was disappointed that he had to leave his happiness to deal with my chaos. To my friends, I maintained the facade of the cool, evolved wife. "Oh, Caleb's seeing this girl. It's cute. I'm totally fine with it. We're both just exploring." Meanwhile, I was a wreck, secretly checking Sloan's Instagram every hour, my thumbs swiping in a frantic, self-torturing rhythm. The kids started to notice. Our daughter Nora, wise beyond her 6 years, asked me one evening, "Mommy, why is Daddy always smiling at his phone but never at you anymore?" Out of the mouths of babes. The question struck me with the force of a physical slap. I hugged her and told her grown-ups have complicated feelings, all the while thinking, because Daddy's being a selfish jerk who's forgotten who was there for him before his shiny new toy came along. I tried to win him back. I bought new lingerie. I suggested date nights. I even cleaned his chaotic home office as a surprise. Nothing worked. He was too tired, or had an early meeting, but I'd hear him on the phone with her at midnight, full of energy and laughter. One night, I walked through the living room completely naked while he was on his laptop. He didn't even look up. That's when I knew. The gentle reminders of what he had at home weren't working. It was time to give him a taste of his own medicine. It was time to show him that two could play at whatever game he thought he was winning. The anniversary was the catalyst, the 31st of January, a date that had once been sacred, now just another day on the calendar. Despite everything, a foolish, sentimental part of me assumed Caleb would at least acknowledge it. Last year, we'd stayed home, ordered takeout, and watched a movie. It was simple, but we were together. A week before, I approached him while he was scrolling on his phone. "So," I said casually, "should we get a sitter for the 31st? Or just keep it low-key?" He looked up, his expression utterly blank. For a second, I thought he genuinely had no idea what I was talking about. Then, the realization dawned on his face, followed by a look of mild panic. "Oh," he said, and I am not making this up. I already made plans with Sloan that night. Her birthday was last week, but we couldn't celebrate because I had that work deadline. I just stood there, the air knocked out of my lungs. I tried to process it. My husband, our wedding anniversary, was choosing his girlfriend. When my brain rebooted, I said, my voice dangerously calm, "You're joking, right? It's our anniversary, Caleb." He had the nerve to look confused, as if I were the one being unreasonable. "We didn't do anything special last year, so I didn't think it was a big deal. We can celebrate the weekend after." Between us, I wanted to take his phone and hurl it through the window. Instead, I enunciated each word with icy precision. "Our wedding anniversary is more important than your girlfriend's birthday." It was a completely rational statement. A fact. Apparently not to him. He got that stubborn look, the same one our son Leo gets when he doesn't want to eat his broccoli. "I already promised her, Eliza. I can't just cancel." That's when I lost it. I erupted. A volcano of resentment, jealousy, and fear that had been dormant for months finally blew its top. I screamed about the money he spent on her, the time he was stealing from his own children, the fact that we hadn't had sex in months because he was always too tired for me, but never, ever too tired for her. I might have called her some names I won't repeat. I might have thrown a coaster at the wall. Caleb just stood there, watching me, his face a mask of weary detachment. He looked at me like I was a stranger having a meltdown in his kitchen. When I finally ran out of steam, breathless and shaking, he spoke in an eerily calm voice. "This isn't about the anniversary," he said. "This is about the fact that you wanted an open marriage until it actually worked for me too." He didn't even slam the door when he retreated to the guest room. Just a quiet, final click that felt worse than any shouting match. I spent our anniversary alone with the kids, a bitter, hollow ache in my chest. I posted a throwback wedding photo on Instagram with a sickeningly sweet caption, "7 amazing years with my soulmate." He didn't even like it. That night, lying alone in our king-size bed, I knew I had to change tactics. If I couldn't pull him back, I would push him. I would wave other men in his face so blatantly he couldn't ignore it. I started leaving my phone unlocked with explicit text conversations visible. I took calls from dates in front of him, laughing a little too loudly. I started making pointed comparisons. "This guy I'm seeing always holds the door for me," I'd mention, as Caleb let one swing shut in my face. "Tyler says my new haircut makes me look 5 years younger," I'd say when Caleb hadn't even noticed I'd gotten 6 inches cut off. It was infuriatingly ineffective. He'd just nod, say, "That's nice," and go back to his phone. I was practically lighting fireworks, and he wouldn't even glance up. Then I found out why. At a company picnic, one of his coworkers, Denise, had too much white wine and got chatty. "Sloan seems so lovely," she gushed. "Caleb brought her to the department dinner last week. They make such a sweet couple." I nearly choked on my potato salad. A department dinner? He had integrated her into his professional life. This wasn't just dating anymore, this was an audition for a replacement. I waited until we got home. "When were you going to tell me you introduced your little girlfriend to all of your coworkers?" I demanded. He just shrugged. I didn't think I needed to report every detail to you. You certainly don't tell me about everyone you meet. That's different and you know it, I snapped. Those are just hookups. You're parading her around like she's your wife. I'm your wife. He laughed then, a tired, humorless sound. Eliza, this was your idea, remember? You wanted us to be free to explore connections. That's what I'm doing. I knew then what I had to do. I needed to see her. I needed to stand in front of her and reclaim my territory. I tracked his location to a small bistro downtown. I put on my best dress, did my makeup flawlessly, and manufactured a reason to be there. I walked in, feigning surprise. Caleb, what a coincidence. I gushed, gliding over to their table. You should have seen her face. Sloan was pretty in that understated natural way that probably took an hour to achieve. And next to her, in my tight dress and full makeup, I suddenly felt overdone. I hated her for it. I invited myself to sit down, draping my hand on Caleb's arm, bringing up inside jokes, talking about the kids. I was all smiles on the outside. I've heard so much about you, Sloan, I said, while my eyes screamed. He has a family. He has a wife. Don't get comfortable. To her credit, she was unnervingly gracious. She asked about the kids by name. She complimented my earrings. Her politeness made me hate her even more. What kind of woman is nice to her boyfriend's wife? A fake one. A calculating one. When Caleb confronted me at home, I played innocent. I was just being friendly. Shouldn't we all be friends in this modern situation? He didn't buy it for a second. And I knew, from the cold, hard look in his eyes, that my little power play hadn't worked. In fact, I think it was the moment he stopped seeing me as his wife and started seeing me as his opponent. The air in our house grew thick and toxic. The kids felt it. Leo started having nightmares again. Nora drew a family picture where Daddy was standing on one side of the page and the rest of us were on the other. It was a crayon drawing, but it might as well have been a legal document outlining the emotional distance between us. The final straw came when Nora asked me, her voice small, "Why does Daddy seem happier when he's leaving than when he comes home?" That question was a knife to the heart. I had given him this freedom, this incredible gift, and instead of being grateful, he had used it to build an escape hatch. This wasn't what I had signed up for. Something had to give. After months of this passive-aggressive warfare, I decided enough was enough. It was time for an ultimatum. I waited until the kids were asleep. I poured myself a generous glass of Cabernet Liquid Courage and cornered him in his home office, where he was probably messaging her. "This isn't working anymore," I announced, my voice trembling slightly. I stood in the doorway, blocking his exit. "You need to end things with Sloan." He looked up from his computer, and his expression was unnervingly calm. It was the calm of a man who had already made his decision. "What brought this on?" he asked, as if he didn't know. "Don't play dumb, Caleb. You're barely present in this family anymore. The kids notice it. I notice it. This whole open marriage thing was supposed to be casual fun. It wasn't supposed to be, whatever this is you're doing with her." He leaned back in his chair, studying my face like I was a mildly interesting puzzle he was about to solve. "You know, Eliza," he said slowly, "I've been thinking about this a lot too, and you're right. Something needs to change." A wave of relief washed over me. Finally, he was seeing reason. He was choosing us. "I'm considering a divorce." The 4 words hit me with the force of a physical blow. The room spun. The glass in my hand felt impossibly heavy. "Divorce?" I whispered. It couldn't be real. Who throws away 7 years, 2 kids, a home, for a fling? You can't be serious. You'd leave your family for this? This temporary thing with Sloan? He sighed, a deep, weary sound that seemed to come from the very depths of his soul. "This isn't about Sloan. Not really. She showed me what a respectful, communicative relationship could look like. This is about us, Eliza. We haven't been happy for years. We've just been going through the motions." My voice rose, high and shrill with panic. "So your solution is to blow up our entire family? What about the kids, Caleb?" "I would never abandon my children," he said, his voice firm. "But staying in a toxic marriage isn't good for them either." "Toxic?" I was outraged. "Our marriage is toxic? Are you seriously choosing this girl you've known for 5 minutes over your family?" He looked so tired then. "I'm choosing peace, Eliza. I'm choosing a relationship with someone who communicates honestly, who doesn't manipulate situations to get what she wants, someone who treats me with basic respect. My strategy shifted instantly from anger to desperation. The backpedaling was so fast it was pathetic, even to me. I never even wanted this open marriage thing. I lied, tears welling in my eyes. I only suggested it because I thought it would make you happy. I thought you were bored. That's not true, and we both know it, he said quietly, his gaze unwavering. You wanted this until it stopped benefiting only you. The panic turned to venom. If you leave, I'll make sure everyone knows, I threatened, hating the words even as they left my mouth. I will tell everyone you abandoned your wife and children for a younger woman. He didn't even flinch. It was then that I realized how many steps ahead of me he was. I've documented everything, Eliza, he said, his voice flat and businesslike. The text messages where you proposed the open marriage agreement. Your behavior. The times you've used the kids to try and manipulate me. If you want to have a custody battle, we can, but I don't think it'll go the way you imagine. In that single moment, I saw the full scope of my miscalculation. This wasn't my game anymore. He wasn't the predictable, passive husband I could lead by the nose. He wasn't supposed to have his fun and come crawling back, grateful I'd let him off his leash. He wasn't supposed to find something better. Someone better. You'll regret this, I choked out, because what else was there to say? She'll get bored playing stepmom to someone else's kids. She's 26, Caleb. She'll want her own family someday. Maybe, he said with infuriating reasonableness. But that's for us to figure out. I've already talked to a lawyer, Eliza. I think it's best if I move out while we sort through the details. I'd love to tell you I handled the next part with dignity and grace. But between us, I lost it completely. I screamed. I cried. I called him every name I could think of. I brought up every mistake he'd ever made in our entire relationship, every sacrifice I'd ever made for him. He just stood there and took it, his face impassive, until I finally ran out of steam, sobbing in the middle of his office. I'm sorry it came to this, he said finally, his voice devoid of emotion. I'll sleep in the guest room until I find a place. We should tell the kids together. And just like that, with the precision of a surgeon, he excised me from his life. The life I thought I was so cleverly manipulating, the life I had just lost. The weeks that followed were a blur of lawyers, mediators, and the gut-wrenching task of explaining to our children that Daddy wasn't going to live with us anymore. We told them together, as he insisted, our words a carefully rehearsed script about how much we both loved them. Leo cried silently, while Nora just stared at Caleb with wide, accusing eyes. Suddenly, I was a single mom. And across town, my husband was playing house with his 26-year-old girlfriend. I crafted a narrative for public consumption, of course. I was the victim, the blindsided wife. He had a midlife crisis. I'd tell friends over coffee, my voice cracking at all the right moments. He left us for a girl barely older than our babysitter. I conveniently left out the part about the open marriage. That was our secret, a detail that complicated the simple, tragic story I was selling. I expected an army of friends to rally around me, to curse his name and tell me I was better off without him. But the reactions were mixed. Some offered their unwavering support. Others were more reserved. A few people who I thought were my closest friends actually stayed in touch with Caleb. The betrayal stung more than I could admit. My nights were spent in a self-destructive loop. A glass of wine in one hand, my phone in the other, endlessly scrolling through Sloan's social media. Every happy post felt like a personal attack. There she was at a basketball game with Caleb, wearing his college sweatshirt. There she was at a farmer's market, holding a bouquet of flowers he'd probably bought her. And then, the worst ones, pictures of her with my children during Caleb's visitation weekends. All of them Caleb, Sloan, Leo, Nora, looking relaxed and happy, playing stepmom already. Those are my children, I'd think, my thumb hovering over the screen, torturing myself with each swipe. The divorce moved forward with brutal efficiency. Caleb was surprisingly generous with the settlement. He said he just wanted it to be fair and over with. He wanted joint custody, which I fought at first, more out of spite than anything else. But the judge, seeing how well the kids were adjusting under the temporary arrangement, made it permanent. The final blow came 6 months after the ink on the divorce decree had dried. He called me, saying he wanted me to hear it from him first. Sloan and I are engaged, he said. His voice was steady, happy. We're keeping it small, but I wanted you to know. The kids are really excited. I said all the right things. My voice was a perfect imitation of a mature, well-adjusted ex-wife. Congratulations, Caleb. I'm happy for you. Inside, my mind was screaming. It won't last. She'll wake up one day and realize she's tied herself to a middle-aged dad with baggage. He'll get bored of you too. I told everyone I was completely over it, that I was focusing on my kids and my career. Meanwhile, I may have created a fake Instagram account to send Sloan anonymous messages. He'll do the same thing to you, you know. Once the novelty wears off, he gets bored. Trust me, if she ever got them, she never let on. Every time I saw her at school drop-offs or soccer games, she was polite, warm, even kind to me. It was maddening. It would have been so much easier if she were a monster. The hardest part, the part that still twists in my gut, is how much the kids like her. My own children, comfortable and happy around the woman who replaced me. Nora asked if Sloan could help with her science project because she's really smart about that stuff. Leo wanted her to come to his championship soccer game. Each innocent request felt like a tiny sharp knife. It's been a year since Caleb first uttered the word divorce. Our open marriage experiment lasted just 8 months, but it shattered our world. Sometimes, late at night, when the house is quiet, I trace the fault lines of our collapse. If I hadn't suggested it, would we still be together in our comfortable, boring life? If I had paid more attention when Caleb first started pulling away, could I have stopped it? But then the anger rises up again, hot and familiar. Between us, I still don't believe this was my fault. I was just trying to feel something, to breathe again. If Caleb had just followed the rules, if he had kept things casual like I did, if he hadn't gone searching for some deeper connection he was supposed to find only with me, we'd still be a family. He's the one who changed the game. He's the one who couldn't handle an adult arrangement. And now, here I am, the villain in everyone's story, especially my own. The wife who got exactly what she asked for and lost everything in the process.